Good evening. Thank y'all for sticking around. I'm Jacqueline Nicole, the awards editor at Rotten Tomatoes, and I feel like I'm the luckiest woman in Santa Monica. To the stage, Mr. Michael Jordan.
Yeah! Woo! 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 Yeah!
He's had a very long day, so he's one like letting us sit down because that deserves about 10 minutes more. Michael, thank you so much for being here. For folks who don't know, this man is such dedication. Obviously, he was accepting an award this week with American Cinematheque, but this is, I think, such a film for you that you're just giving so much to it, including this screening tonight. So thank you for being here. The first question I have for you is, you've already talked so much about what you were trying to do with Smoke and Stack and the duality of these roles. Everything from how Ruth E. Carter tailored the suits to have Smoke be a little bit wider so you know he can hide his guns. I don't know. I'd be curious of what physical things you put in the performance. I saw a lot of the face work that you were doing to differentiate the characters, and then I'd be curious if there was anything sort of like secret that you haven't really discussed that you did to sort of like turn each one on and off.
Yeah, you want all the secret sauce, huh?
It's been out since April. I'm trying to dig.
Nah, me and Ruth, we definitely take the shoots a bit different. Smoke being like the older caretaker of the two, more of the father figure. We kind of described him as like the grumpy old man, you know what I'm saying, out of the two. So he didn't really care a lot about his appearance. That was Stack's job. You know, Stack was the one that really cared about fashion and make sure his hair was done, and you know what I'm saying, he had all the knickknacks and the jewelry and whatnot. And we would imagine that Stack was probably the one that was shaving Smoke and doing his hair and making sure he was like kind of put together. But for me, performance-wise, you know, as I was kind of creating Stack's cadence and his walk, you know, how he would walk into a room, he was a little bit more flighty, a little more buoyant and lighter. That's kind of how he masked his trauma. He didn't want to dwell on it. He didn't want to think about it. He was a fast talker. He always wanted to be on the next thing and kind of an idea guy, you know, creation. So I gave him a size too small shoe. So I wore a size too small shoe for him because it just wanted him to always be kind of, you know, adjusted and just movement. So that kind of helped me, you know, not think about it as much and kind of like live in that space. And for Smoke, along with the suit, I wore a half size too big, you know, in that way he just was slower to move. You know, Smoke didn't talk too much. He was very internal, and well, he only spoke when he really had to. And with the bigger shoes, I felt like he would be more planted and
He stumped. That's what I felt.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So and he was in a constant state of mourning throughout this film. So those were interesting for the wardrobe, and you know they had different gold caps, you know, like the grills that they would wear, and naturally that kind of changes the way where your teeth sets and rests. So we gave them. I tried on so many different ones to figure out what was the right placement to encourage a smile, you know, for Stack, you know, like, you know, he, you know, that gold tooth, you know, grin a little bit, and Smoke, you know, he kind of rested, you know, in a more fatigued, you know, Smoke was tired, you know, so I kind of treated it as such.
I love that. Thank you for the secrets. One of the things that's very evident is the loves of these men's lives. And I think Ryan is not making a judgment about which love is right or wrong, but I think it's telling when you look at the details, like Annie only calls him Elijah, and Mary doesn't do that.
Except for one.
Except for one, exactly. And there is a element of what, like even at the ending, where she just like, we put that smoke down so you can come here with the baby, versus where Mary and Zach end up. I'd be curious for you, as the actor that has to have two believable love scenes, and that's the part that like, whenever you're with the ladies, that's when it's hard for me to picture this is not two people, because it's like so deep. How did y'all do that? Because they're very different love stories, but they're very much believable, like, and nothing felt false.
Yeah, well, I mean, it starts with my scene partners, with Haley and Woman, who were phenomenal, and couldn't have done it without them. You know, to mirror those dynamics and relationships, and you know, through like the research and talking to a lot of identical twins, it's a dynamic and nuance that's so unique and special. It's literally nothing like it. You know, but what I found from talking to you know, identical twins who have relationships or, you know, intimate relationships with their significant other, they all kind of have a similar, you know, you date one, you're dating both of them.
Wow.
Yeah, in a way, you know, good. Y'all got something in
They're like,
is that accurate a little bit? Yeah, was it
alright, before this goes to twins, like, thank you, Matt.
Yeah, you know, but you know, for good and for, you know, for better for worse, you know, in some situations. So, you know, the story that we were telling, you know, Mary, you know, it was a complicated, you know, time and era, you know, Deep South, you know, 1930s, a forbidden, you know, love between the two of them, and but Smoke knew that also, and Mary understood how Smoke felt about her, and how Stack tried to keep that, you know, keep that separate, and it was more of a passionate, you know, not toxic, you know, but it was a very, you know, intense intimacy between the two of them. So we wanted their passion, bless you, and their intimacy to kind of like roll into that space and that pocket. So I was like, okay, cool, that's where we're going to kind of compartmentalize a little bit of that dynamic. And with Annie and Smoke, it felt more parental. It felt more like a grown, you know, love, and they were mourning, you know, and you know, Annie's, you know, perspective of Stack is the reason why I can't get to Elijah. The reason why, you know, Smoke's not here is because he's off, you know, chasing Stack and making sure his brother's going to be okay. So, you know, the way the world treated the twins really helped, you know, define their relationships with their significant others. But at the end of the day, you know, all Stack wanted was a family, you know, and that structure and that community. Same thing with Smoke, you know, and they kind of found their way to it in their own way, you know. One through death and one through, you know, immortality in a way. So
Yeah.
Oh, that's so profound. One of the things I think is incredible is you're being honored here for your entire career. Many of the stops include Ryan. And one thing I loved getting ready for this conversation is how much detail he puts in things. Like, if you go to the Spotify link for the film, there is like newspaper clippings that's attached to various songs that give backstory on everything. And one of the newspaper clippings basically details your exploits in Chicago, which is not something that's like fully discussed in the film, but like literally y'all were, yeah, like I'd be curious if you could talk about some of the things that were built into the performance of Smoke and Stack from their like Al Capone days. I mean, you kind of talk about it, like, you know, Chicago is just the South with big buildings, and you talk about the Italians and the Irish and putting it together, but I'm sure there's more to it.
yeah, I think yeah, incredibly detailed, you know, nuanced. You know, the twins were like the only ones in their community that actually went outside of where they're from, you know, out into the world, you know, went to New York, you know, served in the war, Chicago, saw how businesses were ran, saw how people, nuances outside of the South operated, the potential, and I think that entrepreneurship kind of kicked in for them. Um, you know, they used the fact that they were twins to their advantage. That's why they became hitmen. I'm saying enforcers for Capone. You see one, they're very odd. You see one, you don't know where the other one's going to be. Stack is the one that's going to talk to you in your face. Smoke's the one trying to figure out how you're going to kill you. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of like their dynamic a bit. And Chicago for them was basically them trying to come up, knowing that they're going to get ready to skip town and go back home to kind of start their own business. And so basically they went around to learn as much as they could, and then come back to the community, hire their friends, start their own business, you know what I mean? And not have to owe anybody anything, and go into kind of business for themselves. So they found, a strategy. They thought of a plan in order to kind of get some type of freedom, in this Jim Crow era. And that's kind of, that was their approach. So, the nuances of them stealing from one family, blaming it on the next, kind of turning these mob families against each other in Chicago, all the things that they went through and how they had to survive, in war, and took all that trauma, took all those experiences that they had, and they all of it got put to use on that one day in Mississippi.
Yeah, one of the things I really loved about the fact of the film is we know we're going to, based off the trailer or whatever we see, we're going to have the night with vampires in a juke joint. And the minute you sit down for the film, you're kind of like, wait for that to happen. What I loved when I was rewatching it is how every single scene and every single moment in that first hour or so pays off in the climax. And it's so attached to what ends up happening. There's not a single character line. It all feels so much part of it. How much did y'all talk about that in the creation? Like, you're smiling at me a little bit because you're like, it was a big deal. I can tell this is a big deal.
Yeah, we talked about it a lot, in a sense of, like the slow burn, and sometimes you can write something on the page, but when you get on set, the actors get a hold of it, and you start to put it on its feet, and it starts to evolve into something else. Sometimes that kind of unravels or loosens up a storyline or a plot or something that you were trying to track through. So then you got to smooth back over it a little bit and make sure those dots are connected the way you want it to. And but a lot of it, to be perfectly honest, a lot of it could put on a page. That's his genius. That's the way he writes, the way he creates, and this dynamic relationship he has with his Uncle James and blues music, and how that kind of translated into this bigger thing for him. This idea that came to him while he was washing dishes. It's really profound how it all kind of comes together. And then you have Remick, played by Jack O'Connell, amazing. He was phenomenal in this movie, and how his personal Irish roots come into play into this story, and how personal it was to him. It all these little pit stops and these individual journeys as us actors and characters all somehow came together
in a really beautiful way. What's happening with you and Woomy and Haley and Jack and really everybody, Delroy,
Delroy's phenomenal,
and Jamie, everyone. Thing I wanted to talk to you about also, since this is your career, is everyone's seen Ryan Coogler's Kodak sort of breakdown that he did for the film, as well as Abbott Elementary. It's become part of the culture. Yeah, it's part of the culture now. But I just realized, as someone that's been acting alongside of him for a decade or more, obviously, you've had these mini film school classes, probably at so many different spots along the way. What is your favorite sort of moment like that of him, again, in the process of filmmaking, giving you that extra bit of education? Because over the process, I don't think it's a coincidence that you then decided to pick up a camera and have your directorial take you with Creed 3. It's like, okay, I listened to Ryan for like 2 movies now. I gotta go do this.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I never went to film school, but you know, I think looking, you know, and observing him, you know, I got one of the best educations I could have got. You know, yeah, man, he's full of gems. I think for me,
What was your favorite line of the direction that he gave you, or something where you were like, he just gave you this perfect calibration that got you there? That's an easy one.
yeah, I mean, probably the one that the most emotional was it was earlier on in the production. The first couple days, we were working on the transitions of me going from one brother to the other, and you know, long hours, you know what I'm saying, trying to make the days and turnarounds and stuff like that, and we're shooting it very technically, so you know, using this techno you know, to which is basically, you know, a programmable computer camera that can make the same move up to a certain point within a millimeter, you know, every time, precise. That we used a lot of times whenever the twins were in the same frame, and we had you know, other cast members and things that were all interacting at the same time, and it was tough. It was tough to go from one to another, as I was, you know, figuring out how much time I was actually going to get to go from one to the other. And I remember he pulled me to the side and he was like, you know, what would Chad do? Talking about Chadwick Boseman. Like, what would Chad be doing right now? Because our time with Panther, Chad didn't break character like at all. Chad would just stay locked in the whole time, and he pulled me to the side and he kind of gave me a bit of that, and I said, "Hey, God, say no more." And from that day forward, you know, yeah, I stayed exactly where I was supposed to be, every step of the way. So I would say it probably him saying that to me was the thing I needed to hear earlier on, and you know how much he meant to us, and yeah, it's exactly what I needed to hear. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about Coog, you know, as a director, and also something that I, you know, learned from him, you know, by observing, is like learning everybody's love language, you know, on set. You're dealing with, you know, so many people from different walks of life, different experiences, different departments, you know, different actors, et cetera, but learning how to, you know, get through and connect and say the thing, you know, so it clicks, to get the best versions of themselves is definitely a tool that you need to have, and Coog's, you know, he's born with it. He's just naturally like that. So, yeah, I would say that piece of advice and direction.
That was a great one. This is something that spanned your whole career, and I don't know at what entry point folks got you. Maybe it was The Wire, maybe it was Striking Athletics, maybe it was Black Panther, I don't know. But what was your first credit? You're a child actor, so like
My first credit?
Yeah, your first credit. What age were you? You had to be like
Really?
maybe.
Maybe like 11.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
Maybe.
So if you now, Michael B. Jordan, especially in this moment, could go back to that kid on his first set, what would you tell him?
Man. What would I tell him? I would tell him to be patient, but don't waste time. You know, I think there's a fine line between, you know, being patient and you know, being complacent. You know, yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
All right, this is my last question. We're gonna get you out of here so you can get some rest. And these folks, thank y'all for sticking around. We all need this. Let's be real. It's about to be Thanksgiving next week. We got stuff to do.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, Jordan. Woo!
I've watched Sinners. This is my 42nd watch.
42nd time?
Autumn ended up sitting beside me and my
Okay.
friend from
Why?
That's,
who flew to watch it. He knows Taylor.
All right.
okay.
Thank you.
Wow.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate your hustle.
Yeah.
All right. I want to get y'all out for some last question. Isn't it? That's great. Everybody knows that there are potential to tell more stories within the Sinners universe, and there's various places where they can go. I won't do it. I won't do it. Is there any of I'd say that to you. There's the remnant story. You could explore the Native Americans. It could be Smoke and Stack in Chicago. It could be the Adventures of Mary and Stack.
Shoot.
Okay.
I'm with y'all. You know what I'm saying? I think it's interesting. I think it's great.
Okay, so which one would you like to see? Just from which one are you interested in seeing? Not saying they're gonna happen, but like, which one would you like to see?
I mean, who's a lot? Who's left?
Oh,
Oh, Freeport, you're right. I mean,
it could be the Adventures of Grace and it could be a lot.
I mean, selfishly, okay, I'm selfish. I'll be selfish. I would. You'd love to, probably see the twins. Up until they got back home, might be cool, and maybe the Adventures of Stack and Mary somewhere.
Yeah. That's not gonna hurt
No,
nobody.
that's cool.
Thank you.